Welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. You know, as we get to the end of the year, we're always thinking about, well, what are we going to do different next year than what we did last year? And so it's helpful to go into a year in review. We're going to look back at 2014 and some of the issues that popped up and things that we can learn from going forward to get higher yields.
As always, we have a Weed of the Week. That's coming up later in the show. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk a little about spray drift, managing spray drift on farms. So basically what that is when farmers are out spraying any pesticides, making sure that the spray stays in the field and on target as opposed to moving off target into other areas.
Well, first of all, before any farmer heads out to the field to do some spraying, he looks at what the weather is right now and what the weather is going to be for the next several hours while he's going to be spraying. Let's take today for an example. Now, obviously we aren't spraying this time of year, but if we were, we've got a little bit of a wind out of the north. So we're concerned about, well, how much is that wind? How long is that wind going to be blowing? What's it going to be like later in the day? Typically for farmers, they'll try to spray early in the morning and later on into the evening. That's when there's normally less wind. Usually the heart of the day is when the wind's blowing the hardest, and farmers will try to avoid that.
Well, what farmers are looking for is miles per hour of wind speed being 10 or less. So if it's 10 miles an hour or less, then usually we're in pretty good shape. But still, even if it's 6 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour, we still have to be concerned about that. So what we're trying to do here is make the droplet size a little bigger. The bigger the droplet size, the quicker it's going to get to the ground and the less chance it can get picked up in any different wind.
Well, okay, and here today the wind's out of the north. So if I was spraying in this field, I'd be concerned about, well, what's the crop to the south? What's going to be there? And if we've got the same crop as the neighbor, maybe we're spraying for bugs in soybeans today and our neighbor has soybeans across the fence. Well, it's no big deal if there was just a tiny little bit of drift, but let's just say that he has corn over there and I'm spraying my soybean field trying to kill any volunteer corn that was left from last year. Now it's a big concern, and what I might do as a farmer too is say, okay, I'm going to switch so I've got great big droplets so I don't have drift. I'm also going to leave that last pass next to his field because
or more. As a buffer.
It's just too windy, so I'm going to leave a buffer over there. Now, another thing that farmers will do is, let's just say the wind is pretty calm right now, but it's going to pick up in the next hour or so, according to the weather forecast. Well, that farmer might spray the outside borders of his field first when the wind is calm. Then if the wind does get to be blowing a little bit, he's out in the middle of his field and won't have any drift potential of hurting anyone else.
Okay, I want to come back to how does the farmer make the droplet size bigger? Well, there are two main ways that this happens. Number one is by switching spray nozzles, and that's usually what we recommend to most people. So with certain spray nozzles, they will literally make the drop size bigger and make the drop size more consistent. The other choice is a farmer can use what we would call a drift retardant. It will, in effect, make that liquid a little bit more thick, and when it's thicker, then the droplet size does get bigger.
And you could possibly use both, but most farmers are going to use either one or the other. The other thing that farmers can do on their spray booms, like Brian said, switching to different drift control tips. Well, on the back of a spray boom, farmers can put on 3-way or 5-way nozzles. And what that'll do is at each point on that spray boom where a farmer is going to be spraying, there could be multiple nozzles there that he could choose from. So at the start of the day, let's just say that it's relatively calm, maybe a 1 mile an hour breeze, virtually nothing. Well, you can go out with a flat fan tip that sprays smaller droplets and does a little bit better job of coverage. This is really good for some contact weed killers and getting good coverage on lots of leaves of broadleaf weeds that have multiple growing points. But as the wind picks up, he can just go back and literally within a couple of minutes, even on a big spray boom, the farmer can just click, 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 click down the row, click each one of those multiple nozzle bodies over to the drift control nozzle. It's a really handy way to go. Versus if you're putting drift control in the spray tank, you've already mixed up enough to spray 100 acres out, well, you're pretty much set for the next hour or two that this is what you're going to be spraying, regardless of if the wind is going up and down.
Well, once again, managing spray drift is a very important issue for farmers, and we just wanted you to, hopefully, if you're a non-farmer, understand a little bit more that farmers do take a lot of time. They do take many steps to make sure that whatever they're spraying stays in their field and does not move off target.
Well, if a farmer has much of our weed of the week out there, he'll definitely be out spraying. Can you identify this week's weed?
What's next in weed control technology? Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans will provide tolerance to dicamba and glyphosate and will be built on the Genuity Roundup Ready to Yield trait. See them in action at extendfollowafield.com.
No one understands your farm, your field, and your soil like you. I'm Myron Stein, and at Stein Seed Company, we know your field demands a choice. That's why Stein's corn breeding program combines our industry-leading genetics and superior standability with the most sought-after traits, giving you the best choices for maximum yield. Learn more about Stein's hybrid lineup by visiting steinseed.com or contacting your local Stein Seed dealer.
For lower cost, higher production, Mandaco Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Twister's ease of maintenance is forgiving and rocks and has contour conformity equaling zero downtime. Our hydraulically adjusted coulter angles make residue management easier, less costly. Spring or fall, the Mandaco Twister vertical tillage unit is the new leader. See your Mandaco Agri dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
Precision in grain moisture management can save you thousands in spoilage and elevator docks. The AgriDry Bullseye Controller monitors temperature and grain moisture and is available for all dryer makes and models. Plus, our AD-Link feature gives you 24/7 remote monitoring and allows you to control your dryer wherever you are. Call us today for more information.
Dry Load Store, 1-855-AgriDry.
It's easy to stay busy on your farm over the winter, hauling grain, getting ready for next spring, or a host of other jobs that always seem pressing. However, if you want to make 2015 your best year ever, it's important to invest some of your time learning. I invite you to spend at least one day attending a free Ag PhD workshop. We have a new format, new information, and more tips to help you improve your yield and, most importantly, your profits. Go to agphd.com and register today.
A proven herbicide for decades, dicamba can provide burn-down residual control of tough and resistant weeds for up to 14 days. That's another reason why farmers will use dicamba for years to come. Brought to you by Roundup Ready Plus Weed Management Solutions.
Here on Ag PhD, you may have noticed over the years that Darren and I very rarely have any notes because we're usually just talking about things that we discuss every single day on the farm and with farmers from all over the country and really all over the world.
But as Brian's getting older and it's harder for him to remember things.
No, that's not it. It's just, you know, when we start talking about the 2014 year in review, I got to pull out my notes because it's hard to remember all the things that happened starting from January going all through the year. Today on the show, what we wanted to do is talk a little about soybeans and wheat, and then we'll get to corn and some other issues in just a few minutes. But with soybeans, I guess overall, we're pretty happy with yields around the country. Most things turned out pretty well. But let's talk about the issues and the things we really need to be working on going into next year.
All right, first of all, let's get back to these notes. I think it's important as farmers that we do take notes on different soil types, what we've learned with different tillage implements, whatever it may be across our farm. Keep track of things because it's hard to remember, let alone just from this year, but 5 years or 10 years down the road. Man, how did we handle that back then? And I know it really worked, but I don't remember exactly what we did. The only way you're going to know that is if you keep good records on your farm. All right, so let's start off. First of all, last winter was so cold and it lasted so long into the spring that it changed everything. And we're going to talk about soybeans and wheat right here. But let's just start with soybeans. When we planted them, it was colder than it should have been. And what we end up seeing when we get those years where it's cool and wet in the spring and we plant beans early, we have more chance of getting disease problems. And whether it was SDS, which flared up in quite a few areas across the country this year, or just the overall performance of that plant doing poorly because it was cold, those are the things that stood out most to me.
Well, yeah, but I mean, let's look at all the diseases. Pythium, Phytophthora, there were a lot of disease issues. Seed treatments really paid this year. Now, granted, seed treatments pay most years, but this year, 2014, seed treatments paid a lot. So it's one of the things going into next year, a lot of people have said, well, I got to make sure I put the seed treatment on because I saw a big difference there. Yeah, we do. Hey, there's one other thing too, when we talk about these seed treatments that I guess I wanted to address right now. I know the EPA has been talking about banning neonicotinoids, which in our opinion is ridiculous. They're incredibly safe. They're seed treatment insecticides. And it's really the only seed treatment insecticide family we have left. That's it. It's Gaucho, Poncho, and Cruiser. While they're talking about, well, they don't pay much on soybeans. What? I don't even know what they're talking about. All the data shows it does pay. It's just,
and
oh yeah, we don't.
Pretty well, too.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
I sure would.
Well, it doesn't give you a 10 or 15 bushel gain, and that's the whole thing. So if we're talking about, oh, are we going to have dramatic yield gain? No, we're not going to have that. We're going to have 2 to 5 bushel gains. Okay, it's not that huge a deal.
I can handle 100% return on my investment or more.
Well,
that's fantastic.
It's way, way, way more than that. But the point is just, they're not looking at the economics of it. They're strictly looking at, well, let's try to cut all these different uses. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is cut all the post-emerge uses, and then all the issues with the neonics will go away. So anyway, that was one of the things. And when we talk about seed treatments, there was a good new one this year, Chloriva Complete, to help with soybean cyst nematode that actually kills the nematodes. So those are some of the most important things for me.
Well, there's so many lessons we learned in soybeans. I'll just give you a couple other ones. Since we were cool and wet early in the season, there's a new fungicide label that came out, Preaxor in furrow. We did just a little bit on our field day site and it looked fantastic. We're going to do some more trials with that next year. If it's as good or better than what Headline's been in furrow on our corn, we're going to be pretty excited. Then we look at early season, I mean like V4 or so fungicide applications. Most of the fungicide use in soybeans has been focused on the reproductive stages. This year was a cool year, a lot of Septoria brown spot. We saw good returns putting that fungicide out early around V4. As far as new traits coming, we've got Enlist for soybeans where you can spray 2,4-D, and we've got Extend for soybeans where you can spray dicamba. We're looking for field production to happen this year, so there'll be some seed for farmers to plant in 2016. We'll see how all the approvals go, both in the US but also in China.
All right, let's change gears real quick and talk about wheat a little bit. What lessons did we learn in 2014? The number one thing that I saw in many areas of the country is we had an awful lot of head scab. So let's talk a little about how we're going to manage that particular disease, Fusarium head blight.
The big thing for me is you just have to be proactive with your fungicide use. And in some areas it was just, well, I've already sprayed twice. I don't want to have to go back in and spray again.
There was almost none of that. It was mainly just the fact that we didn't spray 3 times. A lot of guys don't spray at flag leaf. There's maybe 2 to 5% of the wheat that's raised in the United States where it gets a flag leaf fungicide treatment.
Really that low?
It's that low.
Wow.
And the problem is...
That's shocking. All right, shame on all of us. We need to be spraying at that time.
That's the problem. Look at when on average you get the most yield gain out of a fungicide. It's at flag leaf, and that's when the fewest people spray. So that's an absolute must. I'd get that done. And then you got to spray at heading timing, and it's not just at heading timing. It's when the heads come out, when we're at about, let's call it 5 to 15% flowering. Okay, so it's a very, very narrow window. And then the other side of it is you can go the cheap way. You can go Aureus for $2 an acre. If you invest a few more dollars in something like Prosaro or Caramba, then you have a lot better gain. So if you did all 3 fungicide treatments, if you sprayed at heading at just the right timing with the right product, there were big time gains, and we're talking 10, 20 bushel gains. It was huge.
All right, the other thing I was thinking about in wheat is the winter wheat crop that's in the ground right now has got some big time issues. We saw early season, there was moisture in the fall in a lot of these wheat growing areas. If you didn't get a cheatgrass treatment out, you're going to pay for that in the spring, and it's going to be tough to get it under control because it's already tillered out in many cases. Then the other thing is we had stripe rust late in the fall in October and November. In many areas of the country, we'll see what kind of winter we get, but be on the lookout early season. You're going to be out there for disease control in winter wheat.
Last 2 things that I had: low test weight, good yield, but low test weight. That's all because there wasn't enough nitrogen late in the season. So you can put some nitrogen on a little bit later. That's important in the short term. In the very long term, try to build your organic matter levels. That releases more nitrogen late in the season for free, so that's a good deal. The other thing I was going to say is we got a couple more pre-emerge herbicides labeled. Might not seem like a big deal to you. You might not have used a pre before in wheat, but this is really important as we start to see more resistant weeds popping up. So there is Varo, that's an ALS, and yes, you might already have ALS resistant weeds, but you can use that pre. But then Zidua is the other one. We haven't had group 15. That'd be similar to Harness, Surpass, Outlook Dual. We haven't had that group available in terms of chemistry in wheat before. Now we do.
Well, there's so many lessons that we learned in soybeans and wheat, and we're pretty excited about talking about those things, but we can't forget about corn and some of the other crops. We'll get to that in just a minute. But first, take a look at our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?
farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
How will you secure your farm for the future? The Quasar Chopping Corn Head from Capello USA will help. Our design is focused on efficiency, longevity, and reducing harvest loss, making the Quasar the corn harvest solution to bring your farm forward. With hundreds of units ready for immediate delivery, secure your farm's future today. Do it for your farm. Do it for them. Order now. Capello USA. Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
Working in agriculture over the past 3 decades, I saw a need for an accurate way to apply dry product to seed. That's where our Changing Times applicators come in. The CT applicator brush sifts powder into small particles, resulting in proper distribution. Quantities can be adjusted by the speed of the brush rotation. This allows for even and accurate distribution of product. Application at the time of planting can be used with any seed delivery system and saves farmers time, labor, and money. Remember, CT applicators for the Changing Times.
I wish I could side dress more than just nitrogen.
You can. While side dressing is efficient for nitrogen applications, you can also use that opportunity to apply PK and the micronutrients your crop needs. AgroLiquid's Calibrate and MicroLink products allow you to nutritionally balance your side dress application efficiently and economically. Let agricultural liquid fertilizer help you make your next crop a bumper crop. For more info, visit agroliquid.com.
Welcome to the 30-second tour of your local Poet plant. Local producers sell us tons of their grain. We grind it, mix it with water and special enzymes. The result is fermented, distilled, and dehydrated until it's 200 proof alcohol. Corn oil is extracted, and protein and nutrients are condensed, dried, and turned into animal feed, bringing our tour to an end with high-protein feed and cleaner-burning high-octane fuel. Visit poet.com to learn more.
We're continuing our 2014 year in review. Let's talk a little about corn. What were the big lessons you saw this year in corn, Darren?
Well, it starts right from the beginning. You know, we had a cold winter and a long winter, and so when corn got planted early, there was a lot of stand loss out in fields. There are a lot of guys that lost 3,000 to 5,000 plants per acre, maybe even more in extreme cases, especially where they had drainage issues. So drainage definitely paid. Also, in-furrow headline that we've been talking about now for a few years. We've seen good gains in that on our farm and many farms across the country. That really paid this year, and we saw much better stands in those fields where we had that extra fungicide application in furrow.
Yeah, now there are a lot of other companies that are talking about fungicides in furrow. We haven't tested a lot of those, but we are excited to take a look at a number of other options as well. When we come back to the stand losses, I will just tell you on our own farm, we're switching what we're doing with the planter. We're going to put precision planting equipment on the planter this year because you could really see the difference between perfectly placed seed and not so perfectly placed seed. And you know, I would say too, later planted corn this year seemed to pay pretty well. Well, it doesn't always work out that way, but here's kind of the way that we've looked at it over the years. If it's a really cold spring, then a lot of times we have a little bit of time. You might be able to just wait an extra week or so and things turn out pretty well. Overall, yields were pretty good. It always starts with good soil testing and good soil fertility. We just strongly encourage you, take good soil tests. Learn how to read a soil test. If you don't know how, we have the free Ag PhD soil test app, so you can get our recommendations and learn about soil testing there. You can come to a free Ag PhD soils clinic. We want to help you with this because if you don't get the fertility thing right, it's going to be hard to get a great crop and harder to make money. And this year of all years, I mean, margins are going to be squeezed, let's put it that way. And you've got to have every dollar that you invest actually make some money for you.
One of the things that we learned this year, and it's a lesson that we've kind of had before, but never to this degree. We had like 20 inches of rain in a 3-week time period in June. It was ridiculous. That's never happened before. I know for sure in my lifetime it hasn't happened before.
It's never happened ever. It was a record for our state for the most amount of rainfall in a single month ever. So anyway, we had been dry and we remained dry other than that rain we got in June. So basically we've had 3 years of complete drought, but we got a whole bunch. We got a year's worth of rainfall in 3 weeks in June. So then you could really see some of the things we've tried to do right. Good drainage, reducing tillage, all those things were good. Any mistakes that we made, they really got amplified because we had so much rain in a short period of time.
I like how most of that soaked in, at least the first 10 inches or so, all soaked into the ground. And we hear time and time,
drought for 2 years
we hear time and time again, oh, it's going to take so many years for everything to turn around. Don't believe that. That can change in a hurry. We've seen it just in the last decade. We've gone from way too wet to way too dry to way too wet to way too dry. It just happens really quick with nature. The other thing that I was going to mention, Brian, that's worthy of note is our field day this year was tremendous. And I was worried about it because we were so dry for so long. I thought, how are we ever going to get crops to grow?
And then we were so wet, and yes. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And if you attended our field day this last year, we just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for a great year. Thanks for all these great years. Ag PhD has been on the air now for almost 17 years now. So we just want to say thank you so much for watching the show, and we hope you can join us for this coming year's field day and this winter's workshops.
Well, we've had fun talking about the 2014 year in review, but we still have to control our Weed of the Week. It's coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Farming isn't just in the land, it's in you. Take control of weeds like never before. Enlist builds on the Roundup Ready system, combining proven control of a new 2,4-D and glyphosate in Enlist Duo herbicide. Protect what matters without changing the way you farm. Talk to your seed or crop protection supplier today.
Our Weed of the Week is wild carrot.
Wild carrot is typically a biennial. Now it can be an annual or a short-lived perennial as well, but typically biennial weed that it just doesn't pop up out in our cultivated fields as much as we see it in the non-crop areas, in overgrazed pastures, in ditches, rangeland, that kind of application. So for me, I'm looking at those products that are going to get down into that root system. If you've got a biennial weed, you can't just burn it off on top of the ground. That's not good enough.
Well, I was just going to say, it also prefers drier areas. So you think about when we have drier areas, usually we don't have as much grass there choking out the weed, and it's easy, especially there, to overgraze the pasture. So yeah, we do see issues, but it's not all that difficult to control. My favorite product would be Tordon, but let's keep in mind that Tordon has a very long residual and it kills trees, and you have to keep it away from water, so you just can't use it everywhere.
Well, Milestone's not too bad. Chaparral does a nice job as well. That's getting to be a go-to product for many ranchers in the western U.S. because it's got two different products in there. It has the Milestone and also the Cimarron in there, so it gets a wide variety of weeds. Then you can of course use just 2,4-D. If you want to just burn top growth off and you say, hey, it's a biennial, we're in the second year, it's bolting up, it's going to produce seed, I'll just burn it off right now and we're done. You can do that too, but I'd much rather hit it in that first year when it's more in the rosette stage. That's a better time to kill it, especially with a late fall or very early spring application.
If you do happen to get it out in crop fields, usually where we see it is no-till or strip-till, and then if you go out with a fall treatment, usually a Banvel or 2,4-D, something like that will work great. Otherwise, in-crop, Roundup is really the best. There aren't a lot of products that are labeled in-crop.
Well, when you look at wild carrot again, it's kind of one of the sunflower family of weeds, so we do have decent luck with some of the ALS products too. I think in soybeans have Pursuit and Raptor as being potential options. If you have Clearfield wheat beyond, maybe an option as well.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
Inoculant application for soybeans is a job you can do on your farm. We'll explain the best equipment set up for inoculant in today's Iron Talk. Soybean inoculant is a common term for rhizobia bacteria. They colonize around soybean roots and bring nitrogen from the air into the plant. The trick is to apply them to the seed and get them into the soil before they perish. We've had questions so far this winter about in-furrow application of liquid inoculants versus seed applied, and also about dry inoculants. Here's what we found. Inoculants must be in close proximity to the main taproot of the plant to be the most effective. For this reason, seed-applied treatments are the most effective. With in-furrow liquid applications, you'll likely need 5 times as much product to equal the results of seed treatments. We've also seen much better results when applying inoculant within hours of planting. Planting seed days or weeks later after treating the seed results in bacterial mortality of up to 90%. But bridging or clumping of seed with liquid seed treatments done right before planting is always a concern. The best practice is to spray liquid inoculant on at multiple points in a brush auger. The same would hold true for a belt vare or a cup system. The keys are to use multiple nozzles to get improved coverage of the seed and then have some sort of mixing as well to coat the seed on all sides. Doing it a few hours in advance of use and running the seed through a brush auger or belt vare after treating will greatly reduce, if not eliminate, clumping, leading to maximum performance from the inoculant and the seed. When it comes to dry inoculant, there are dry treaters on the market. CT Applicators has the best technology that we've seen on the market, with a stainless steel hopper to avoid the static and a sifter to even out the application. Adding inoculant to soybean seed generally provides a nice return on investment. Doing it yourself is pretty simple, whether you use a liquid or dry inoculant. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show. It's easy to stay busy on your farm over the winter, hauling grain, getting ready for next spring, or a host of other jobs that always seem pressing. However, if you want to make 2015 your best year ever, it's important to invest some of your time learning. I invite you to spend at least one day attending a free Ag PhD workshop. We have a new format, new information, and more tips to help you improve your yield and, most importantly, your profits. Go to agphd.com and register today.
I wish I could apply all the PK and micronutrients this crop needs at planting.
You can. When your soils are not excessively nutrient deficient, you can apply a whole season of PK and micronutrients when you plant and get top yields at harvest. AgroLiquid's exceptional nutrient compatibility and superior efficiency allows you to prescription apply everything your crop needs safely and conveniently. Research proves it. For more info, go to agroliquid.com.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave P. Most of your applied P gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more P available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing P availability can lead to increased P uptake in the plant. That's more P, and more P. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.6 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your P with Avail.
Dirty work pays. That is if your dirty work includes a SoilMax Gold Digger tile plow. SoilMax tile plows feature zero deflection technology. With the only tile plow factory paired with Ag Leader's IntelliSlope control system, you eliminate the need for grade calculations and lasers. So make your next investment in a SoilMax Gold Digger. Better yield, longer planting and harvest windows, better water management is all yours with SoilMax. Visit soilmax.com.
My data is mine, not mined.
Mine to share,
mine to keep. It's mine when I want it.
Mine where I want it.
And only mine. My data is mine to analyze.
Mine to put to work.
Mine to control. It's mine.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
On your farm, you need speed and year-round effectiveness in your tillage program. The Quick Till from Norwood Sales allows you to move quickly through your fields, maximizing time and improving yield. Constructed of heavy-duty materials, the Quick Till is ideal for both spring and fall applications, from preparing a healthy seedbed early in the season to breaking up corn residue after harvest. For more information about how a Quick Till can improve fields on your farm, call Norwood Sales today.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show, but if you're looking for more agronomic information, we invite you to tune into the Ag PhD radio show. You can find us each weekday on SiriusXM Channel 80 at 2 p.m. Central.
Don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show, where we'll have another Iron Talk, Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Only 11.6 cents per dollar spent on food in America goes back to American farmers and agribusinesses. Where does the other 88.4% go, and what really raises food prices? Visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org to find out.